keep it real with ya.
Hi everybody, it's me Minu again. I'm back here to talk about another aspect of my identity, and if you read the title and already clicked away, that's fine, but I want to talk about being an atheist. But before I get into that, I just wanted to thank everybody who commented on my videos about asexuality, talked about their experience, talked about what they resonated with, because I do feel like it's important to have that discussion and for people to understand that different people have different experiences and asexuality is a spectrum. So I just want to thank you guys from the bottom of my heart for, giving me the comments, giving me the feedback. I love it. Because this is, I'm sitting here talking to a camera, but this is also a discussion. This is us sharing our experiences. That's the whole purpose of what I'm doing here. So I wanted to show you my shirt. So there you go. It's kind of wrinkled, but basically this is back when I was in like high school. I'm pretty sure it was high school. So basically the situation is I couldn't afford Hot Topic. Hot Topic was too much money. So what I would end up doing is I would go to the dude section in Walmart and look at the graphic tees, and that's where I would find these shirts. This shirt is a little bit big on me, which makes me very happy to say. But yeah, it's a little bit big on me. It's kind of wrinkled because I haven't worn it forever. Anybody who knows me is like, what? Minu, you're wearing a white shirt for the first time in years? Yeah. I just ran into it and I was like, you know what? I miss this shirt. I'll put this shirt on. I'll give it a try. But yeah, so again, continuing on with the ABCs of Minu series, I wanted to talk today about being an atheist. This might be another long video. So, if you want to stick around, I appreciate it. If you don't, I understand. I know some of you that I got from the asexual video might immediately be clicking off like, okay, she's an atheist, time for me to go, but honestly, what I try to explain to everybody when I'm talking about atheism is that I'm not anti-religion, and I think that that's the biggest misconception that a lot of people have when they're super religious and they meet someone who's not. They think that I hate them, I hate their religion. They think that I'm offended by their religion. Some of my family members, every now and then, like if I'm going through something and they catch themselves being like, they want to pray for me, or they say something like, man, I just pray everything goes well. And then they stop themselves and they're like, I just hope, I hope things go well for you. Or they say something like, oh, thank God that everything went well. And then they'll be like, not thank God, Minu. Thank the universe, like all that stuff, like I'm about to attack them. And I'm like, no. I could care less, when people say stuff like that. Like if I'm out and I sneeze and someone says, bless you, I'm not going to be like, how dare you? I hate you. I'm going to be like, oh, thanks, because it's not malicious in that way. Now, if I'm telling someone that I am an atheist and they're going, I'm going to pray for you. Get the fuck out of here, man. I don't want to deal with those type of people. But if you're just like, casually just talking about your life and you're like, man, I just thank God that nobody was hurt. I don't care about that. Go, this is good. You're happy no one was hurt. I do not take offense to those type of things. But yeah, I did write down some of the things that I wanted to touch on, which is why I think this video might be a bit longer. But now that I've gotten all of the disclaimers out the way and, you guys understand that I'm not here to attack anybody. Did you need something, ma'am? Say. Is you good? Say, I don't want cat butt. I don't want that. Can you go somewhere? Thank you. Jeez. It's crazy. What was I even saying? Yeah, I wrote down what I wanted to talk about which is why I think this video might be a bit longer, but I'm just gonna go through it and we're gonna see how far we get before Sadie interrupts us again. Anyway, so the first thing I want to talk about was just growing up. So I did mention in the last video about the kind of how being straight was the default in my family. Being Christian was also the default in my family. I never thought anything about it. I was just like, I thought everybody was Christian. Honestly, I just grew up thinking everybody's Christian. You might be Baptist, you might be Methodist, but you're Christian. Everybody believes in God, that's it. And so I just never thought that was an option, and that was by design. In my family, they believe that good parenting is not allowing your child to choose their religion, because religious people think that their religion is the religion, and if you don't believe in our religion, you're going to burn in hell forever. So we can't let our children know that religion is optional. We can't let them know that who they choose to worship is a choice. You just have to be Christian. You have to worship Jesus Christ. That is what it is, period, point blank. And so it was by design that I didn't know that there were non-Christians out there of any kind. I didn't know about Muslims. I didn't know about, atheists. I didn't know about Jewish people. Like, it was just kind of like everybody's Christian. I kind of knew about Jehovah's Witnesses, but not exactly what they were. They was just them weird people who was knocking on your door and you're not supposed to answer the door when they come through. But I mean, I would say that that's very typical of a Southern Black family, is that, you're in the Bible Belt. Most people are Christian, and Christians in America tend to, not all Christians, before anybody gets offended, but Christians in America tend to want their religion to be the dominant religion because they think that that's the right religion. So they want everybody to be like, we're celebrating Christmas and there's no other holidays between Thanksgiving and New Year's other than Christmas. It's just Christmas. That's it. And so it was very much that. It was that in school. It was that at home. It did not matter. Now that I think about it, I feel like school should have did a better job of being more secular, more open to other religions, but they didn't. It was everybody's Christian, whatever. I never really thought a lot about Jesus or God as like people. Like, I kind of thought about them the same way I thought about Santa Claus and the Tooth Fairy, which I believed in them up until a certain point. Like, I believed in the Tooth Fairy up until one time I lost a tooth and didn't tell nobody, and I didn't get any money. And I was like, so the Tooth Fairy ain't real. All right, fuck that bitch. And, I believed in Santa Claus for a certain period until I realized that I don't have a chimney and we keep our doors locked. So the gifts don't just magically appear. Like, somebody else is putting them there. People are lying to me. I didn't really think anything of it. Like, yeah, Jesus, God, whatever. Thank God. Thank Jesus. I didn't think of nothing about it. I just wasn't caring about it that much. Now, that being said, I did go to a Baptist church. And my grandmother was very heavily involved in the church. And so there would be a lot of times when we would just have to go to church. I hated it. I hated going to church. And some people might be like, man, Baptist churches, they're so fun because, you got the good music and the dancing and blah, blah, blah. I was like, no, I hated church. One, I hated being up so early. Two, it was loud. It was loud as fuck. Like, when I tell you they was beating the shit out of them drums and tambourines and everything, and then everybody was singing, and then you had the pastor who was always yelling on a goddamn microphone, I got wild, because God is in me, I got. It was like sensory overload, and I hated it. I'm like, it's too fucking early in the morning for y'all to be screaming about Jesus being in you. It's too early. Calm down. Can we like calm up to it? Like, it was just so annoying, and I hated every part of it. And I didn't understand like the purpose of it. It just was kind of like an obligation. Like, we just have to go to church. Why we're going to church? Don't ask an adult why you go to church, because I say you go to church. And so we were there, and I found out from my family members later, apparently I used to bring a Game Boy to church and play on that, which makes sense Because I remember at one point wanting to bring my laptop to church so that I could play The Sims. So it makes sense that I was trying to do stuff like that. And it's just, anything was better. Anything was better than sitting there and having to listen to all that stuff. Like, there would be times when I'd be doing something and they'd be like, no, put it down. Listen to the guy at church. And I'd be like, I don't want to do this. So I'd even read the Bible. Like, I literally want to do anything else. I couldn't understand him anyway. He was yelling into a microphone. And we had a big church. So he was yelling into a microphone and the speakers were all loud. I couldn't even understand what he was saying anyway. So I'm just like, there's no point in me just listening to yelling. And this is before I got into rock music. So to me at the time, I was like, yelling is awful. And I didn't like the music. I didn't like gospel music. So I didn't like the songs. I didn't care how, I didn't like the Negro spirituals, the hymns, whatever the fuck. I didn't like any of it. I just hated it. And I did anything I could to not be there. So I would sneak off to the bathroom a lot of times. And we had a really nice bathroom. Because I don't know why women's bathrooms have to be extra. But there was like a living room in the women's bathroom at the church. So when you first come in, there's a living room with like couches and chairs and like end tables where you can like sit down and read a book and stuff. And then you go further through there and then it's the bathroom. So I would literally go in there and I would take naps. I would, if somebody came looking for me, I would like sit on the toilet and like pretend that I was using the bathroom because I'm like, I can't come back yet. Or I would try to come back at a time when they wouldn't let you in, like when the ushers close the doors and they're like, no, you can't come in yet, you gotta wait. I would do all of that, like, because I just did not want to be there. Like, I would explore the other parts of the church that they weren't in currently. I just didn't want to be there. I hated it. And I don't know if my family might have looked at it like, oh, that's because the evil in you doesn't want to hear the word of the Lord or whatever the fuck. And I'm just like, look, maybe, but I'm not having a good time. I'm not enjoying what's happening here. It's too loud. I don't like it. I want to go home. And the only thing that made church bearable was my grandmother, because my grandmother was a caterer for a very long time. And so she would often cater the lunches at the church. And I don't, like, if my grandmother was alive today and she said, y'all, I'm cooking for the church, come to church so you can eat my cooking, I'd be there in a second. I'd be like, yes, ma'am, praise the Lord, whatever. I'm there for the chicken. My grandmother's food was delicious all the time, and all the time it was delicious. And so that was the only good part, but I was still like, we wait like 4 hours just to fucking eat, because church had to take so damn long. Anytime my grandmother was cooking for the church, I would always be like, yeah, okay, we're going, because we want to eat Sunday brunch, and the only place it is at the church. And then my church was really big, so we had like the church, and then across the street we had like this big recreational building. And so when we would go over there to prepare, to serve my grandmother's food, if my grandmother was over there cooking or preparing the food, I would just go over there. Like, I'd just be over there. And that way I could skip all of the regular church service. There's a room next to the kitchen where my grandmother would be cooking, and I would always hide out in that room. So that way I could skip all the church service and just wait on the chicken. And then when everybody came over to get ready, I try to like sneak in the kitchen, or I try to be one of the first people to eat. But most of the time I would just be hiding out in that other room, either taking a nap in the dark or just kind of like hanging out in the dark, whatever. I didn't get a phone until I was like middle school, I think. No. When was my first one? Yeah, I did get a phone in middle school. So I didn't even have a phone to just be on and doing stuff. I literally was just like sitting there in the dark thinking to myself, or like maybe I snuck in a book or something. I was reading a book, but I literally did not want to be at church. I hated it so much. I mean, my family would always say things like, oh, it's good for you, and you need to hear the word, or if you don't go to church, you're going to go to hell. Like, you need to have your soul, spirit cleansed or whatever. Whatever. I didn't care. It just wasn't important to me. And in my mind, I remember thinking at the time, like, the only people who care about church are old people, because they're close to death and they want to make sure they're going to heaven when they die. And in my mind, I was like, none of this is necessary for the rest of us because we're young. And over the years, there were less and less people who attended that church. So it kind of fit my, you know, the little idea I had in my head, because most of the people you would see at the church were really, really old. So that was my childhood up until about middle school. Once I got into middle school, I still wasn't like on YouTube or anything, and I like watching videos where people are like, man, you know, I didn't know anything about atheism until I started watching YouTube and I started following people. I didn't watch YouTube just yet. So for me, I just kind of had came to the understanding myself that I was drifting away. I was drifting away, and I didn't really believe in God. It was just kind of one of those things where it's like, you say it because you have to. But once I was in middle school, I started to think, you know, like, but how do we know for real? Like, how do we know that there's a God for real? And how do we know that God is who we think they are? Like, in my mind, I was like, why can't God be a woman? You know, or why would God have any gender? You know, or God made us in his image. Like, people look really different. That doesn't make any sense. Or God is just a beam of light, or God and Jesus and the Spirit, they're all the same person, but they're also three people. And none of what people said to me ever made sense. So in middle school, I just kind of became agnostic and just kind of like, we really don't know. And I don't feel like spending all my time trying to be in the church and trying to worship Sky Daddy, as Jimmy Snow likes to call him. I didn't really feel like I needed to do that, and it didn't make me happy to do it. So in my mind, I was just like, I'm just gonna inch away from this. You know, I'm gonna live my life without Christianity holding me back, because I felt like there were things in Christianity that you kind of felt like shamed for. And you know, like I mentioned in my last video, I used to watch porn. I sometimes watch it now, but like, I had gotten into porn. Like, I found out what it was, and I like watched it, and then my mom told the whole family, and everybody tried to shame me and be like, yeah, we know what you be looking at on the internet. And I was just like, this is stupid. Like, but why is it a big deal? Like, why does anybody care that I do that? And it's because Christianity was big on shaming women for their sexuality. And because my brothers watched it all the time. You know, my brothers watched it. They talked about it. My dad talked about it with them. And I just had to be like, I had to be different, you know, because I was my dad's only girl. He had 3 sons, and then he had me. So for me to see kind of like the gender inequality of it, of like my dad being like, well, the boys can do whatever, but you a girl, you can't do this. And then my family of mostly women backing it up, like, you know, well, God wants women to be like this, and you know, you want a man like this, and God is the father, and blah, blah, blah. None of it made any sense to me. So I just kind of came to the conclusion on my own. Like, I feel like when I am Christian, I feel a lot of shame about the things that I'm doing and the way I'm living my life and the things that I want to do in my life. When I'm not Christian, I feel free to make my own decisions about who I am and who I want to be. So when I got to middle school, I was just kind of like, I don't want to be Christian. And I wasn't even kind of like, oh, God's definitely not real. I'm an atheist. Didn't know what the word was. But I was just kind of like, I don't want to be Christian. I don't like that, you know. And in my mind, I was like, maybe I'll find another religion that I would like better, and that would be better. But I just wasn't Christian. I even had a moment where, as I was believing more and more that God wasn't real, that I was like in my mind, like, well, God, if you're here, you know, just show me, like you see people do it. They're like, well, God, you just show me, or speak to me, God. And at one point I thought that I was talking to God, but then I realized I was just talking to myself. I was just talking to myself. I mean, honestly, you know, I was talking to myself, asking myself questions, and then I was answering my questions. But I was just talking to myself. So I really came to the conclusion, I was like, yeah, I don't really think that this guy is real. And I just thought it was weird too that there's this man in the sky who like watches you all the time. And I know it's meant to like shame you and be like, well, don't watch porn or masturbate because Jesus is looking at you. But I just felt like it was weird that when I was in the bathroom on the toilet, that there was just this man here just looking at me. For what reason? You know, why he looking at me? What? I'm not doing anything. This is a natural part of my body. I have to go to the bathroom. I just thought it was weird. And so I was like, I'd rather believe that there's no one there than go crazy being like someone's watching me pee. So I kind of came to that conclusion, and I did talk about it in school, which led to a lot of bullying of kids, you know, being like, well, if you don't worship God, who do you worship? You know, do you worship the devil? Do you worship the Buddha? You know, like, they didn't know a lot of stuff. So they were just kind of like bullying me. And the teachers weren't really helpful because the teachers were also very religious. Even in my science class, we would try to talk about evolution, but then my teacher would be like, well, but if you Christian, no, if you're Christian, you understand that really what happened was God created everybody at the same time to be exactly who they are, and evolution isn't real, and all of that bullshit. And I didn't think at the time, like, bitch, you supposed to be talking about evolution. I just kind of was like, here we go again with another Christian talking about, you know, bringing religion into science. And I knew that they were different. But then I had this other teacher who decided that she wanted to kind of like take me under her wing or something, like mentor me or whatever, because she was religious like all my other teachers. And she found out that I was not Christian. And that I had, by the time I met her, I was like, I don't believe in God. I don't think he's real. Or in my mind, I was like, or if he is real, he would be more of an it and would not be what we think it is, you know. So I just was not having the Christianity nonsense. And so when I met her, she was like, well, you know, Minu, you like to read a lot of books, so I'm going to give you some books. And so the book she gave me was the Left Behind series. And I read it because at first I was like, oh, okay, here's the apocalypse. I like horror movies. I'm going to read these books. I read a few of them and then I got bored because it was kind of less about what I thought it was going to be about, like the horrors of the apocalypse, and more about how like, oh, we messed up. We didn't believe in God hard enough, and now we all have to be on earth while things go bad. But the things that go bad was just normal shit that be going bad anyway in the world. So it didn't really make no sense to me. It got boring. It got boring real quick. And then she was like, well, you like science? I'm going to give you a science book. And she gave me this book that was basically using science to justify a God, or science proving that God exists. And that book was boring because it was just saying like, well, yeah, we know about evolution and we know about the Big Bang, but what about before the Big Bang? You know, there had to be a God before then. And I was reading that and like, yeah, I guess that could make sense. Like if you could say like God started the Big Bang and then everything else happened without any God interference, that kind of made sense to me. I was like, okay, well, you know, there could be a God that just created stuff, but then there's nothing else after that. They don't do anything. They don't make any laws. They don't make any religions. They don't care what humans do. We're insignificant. That ain't the message that she wanted me to get from it. And she wanted me to be like, oh my God, yes, God is real and Christianity is real and God wants me to live my life this way and all of the teachings of Christianity and Jesus is real. No, I didn't think any of that. None of what that book said about, well, you know, yeah, evolution's nice, but what about the missing links? Or well, who started evolution? You know, there's nothing saying God couldn't create evolution. None of that meant that Christianity was real. You know what I mean? And there was like people who were in the book like, well, I used to be an atheist because I was a scientist, but now I'm a Christian because I'm a scientist and I see that Christianity and God is real. And that's why I made this book. And I'm just like, you haven't justified anything to me though, but you haven't told me anything. So it didn't really mean anything. She didn't really convince me of anything. I got really bored of the Christian books after a while, and she kept trying to talk to me about it, and I just wasn't here for it, you know. And also I felt a little some type of way that she wasn't stopping the bullying. You have one job. That's not true. Teachers have a million jobs, but one of teachers' jobs is to make sure students feel safe in their classroom. And if you're trying to convince me that I should be a Christian and believe in God while also allowing the students to bully me for not being a Christian and believing in God, you just seem like a bitch. And why I want to be in the same religion as somebody who thinks it's okay to bully someone into their religion? It just seems not nice, not like the right thing to do. So maybe if she tried harder with her actions, instead of trying to convince me things, you know, trying to convince my mind, she could have been a nicer person and it might have made me think better, but she didn't. And it was the same thing with my family. Like my family, I wouldn't say they were like bullying me, but I would say they're very aggressive because they perceived me not being Christian as an attack on their Christianity. So by nature of me existing as an atheist in the same space as them, that was a problem. And so I would get, you know, accosted by relatives of like, well, who you think woke you up this morning? Or, you know, God is real. That's why you're breathing right now. They would ask me if I worship the devil. They would ask me if I was just being atheist because according to something in the Bible, if you're Christian, you have to abide by all the rules. And if you break the rules, you go to hell. But if you're not Christian and you break the rules, you don't go to hell. So that they thought that I was just doing that. And I was like, no, just don't believe in your God. And, you know, I had one situation when my grandmother was in the hospital and this super religious family friend showed up while me and my mom were leaving. And she's like, oh, I heard that you don't believe in God anymore, and I just want to talk to you. And it's like, I know your grandma's in there struggling, and I'm going to see her in a minute. But I just want to let you know that I don't want you to go to hell because you are confused about God. And I'm sitting here like, bitch, if you don't get the fuck out of my face, my grandma's in there sick. I don't give a fuck about you and your religious agenda right now. I'm worried about my grandma staying alive. Damn. That lady was annoying. I had to avoid her a lot. And I was very offended because my mom didn't say shit. My mom was there in her mind like, yeah, tell her she going to hell. Yeah, that's going to convince her. No, it didn't. It didn't. It just made you guys once again look awful. I also had a situation where my aunt bragged about the fact that she put holy oil on the door and that I touched the holy oil. So it's like I got like anointed or whatever. And I just felt like that was petty. Like that's some petty Christian shit, you know? Or people talking about like sprinkling holy oil on things and you touch, because it didn't do anything. It still didn't make me Christian. It didn't work. You know, forcing me to listen to gospel music when I'm around you, it didn't work. Making me read religious books, making me even read the Bible, it didn't work. Because at the end of the day, none of the arguments people made sense. And then they were like, well, maybe you should just like talk to the pastor at our church. I don't want to talk to that old man. I found a lot of old men creepy when I was young. I just didn't want to be alone with him while he tries to tell me the same shit I've already heard. There was no questions that he was going to answer that would actually turn me Christian. I knew that he would just say the same shit that everybody else has said to me already. And when I asked the questions that were like real deal questions, he wouldn't be able to answer them, and he'd just get frustrated that I'm like insulting his religion. So I didn't want to be in a room with somebody like that. I didn't want to do that. And I feel like, and I know it's not right, it's not nice to say things like this, but this is my personal experience. We just talking about our personal experience. I feel like I turned more atheist out of spite, like out of the way that people treated me when they found out that I was straying from the religion. It made me turn more atheist, because I kind of was like agnostic for a long time. I was just like, look, we don't know. I don't know. You don't know. Let's just do whatever we want to do and leave it alone. And then it was like, wow, you really gonna come at me? You really gonna come at me every day for not following your religion, for not doing what you want, for not being who you want me to be? Okay, you know what? Your God don't exist then. And so I kind of just ended up being like that. And I know it wasn't nice. And, you know, the nice thing would be to say, oh, my life was perfect, but I just was an atheist because I'm smart. But it ain't often like that. And it wasn't like I was watching any videos. It wasn't like I was talking to anyone who was an atheist. I didn't know anybody who was an atheist. It was literally just me and how my own thoughts developed. That was it. You know, it wasn't like I was watching horror movies where they were anti-Christian. If anything, a horror movie involving Satan was always the bad guy. I never saw a horror movie where Satan was the good guy. So there wasn't anything to influence me. This was all me and my own thinking. You know, And as I got closer to the end of middle school, going to high school, that's when I started watching, I watched YouTube a little bit because I got into the whole Illuminati thing. So I was watching those videos, which also talked a lot about Satan being evil and trying to control the world. And it still didn't turn me Christian. I still was like, damn, that's crazy. You know, oh, wow, Satan runs the Illuminati runs the world. All right, then, I guess that just is what it is. You know, it wasn't me thinking, oh, I got to pray real hard so Jesus can come and stop it. No. It was just fun to watch Illuminati videos. I did discover this channel. I watched a few of their videos, but then I got off YouTube and started doing other stuff. But this channel called Dark Matter, I can't remember the numbers, but I know it's Dark Matter because he made these cartoons where God would be in these different like Bible scenarios, and he would be like, I'm gonna flood the entire world. And he would have his little angel on his shoulder be like, but why though? Like, and God would be like, cause I want to, you know, there's so much evil in the world. I'm just gonna kill everybody, start over. And then the angel would be like, even the babies though? Like, babies didn't do anything. Like, why are you gonna kill everybody? And why does it have to be a flood? Like, what is it? Like, they were asking the questions that I would also be asking when I'd be reading these random Bible stories. And I'd just be like, what the fuck? Why would you even think to do that? And so it was good for me because even though there was no answer, you know, it wasn't like God is like, you know, oh, I just hate all people and I'm actually Satan and I'm evil and that's why I want to flood. It was just like asking questions. And they were questions that I have been thinking about that I've been wanting to ask somebody, but I couldn't ask anybody because I didn't know anybody who wasn't Christian. It wasn't even like I knew a Jewish or Muslim person. I just didn't know anybody who wasn't Christian. Once I got to high school, there were a couple people in high school who did come out as atheists. And I was happy about that.